Welcome to Santa Pod Raceway and the World Finals. An excellent crowd, as we can see, excellent weather conditions. The track in its best condition it has been for many, many years. Fine performances in store for everybody this weekend. Not only our professional classes, but of course we also had a full field of sportsmen. And here we move on with pro modified qualifying, and Cole Taylor here with the Starlight Camaro. And there's a man that's run in many, many classes over the last few years and has run very well indeed. In the other lane, Dave Pollen, believe it or not, that Opel Monza is completely road legal. I must admit I wouldn't want to drive that down the high street. And here we see our qualifying runs together. And Cole Taylor on another good run there. Looks like a low 9-second run for him there. Dave Warren, well, as the caption says, he probably has worn the car out by now. And the mean as hell Sierra, a very popular body style, the Sierra. Really has taken off very well. And here we see Phil Englefield again. And both our cars, they've completed the burnout there. Phil Englefield, you can see, with still a lot of smoke inside the car. Could cause him problems on the qualifying run. Here they come moving forward into stage. Waiting for the green light. There goes Dave Warren, edging forward. Lifts that front wheel in the air. A very characteristic launch there for Dave Warren. As I say, qualifying for tomorrow's eliminations. Good run there for Dave Warren. A little bit of smoke at the top end for Phil Englefield. Well, another body style that's come to the fore very much. Good to see some European body styles. And the Rover of Brian Peach, the Lethal Blow car. And Tim Hines with the Escort. Has been a little bit in the doldrums the last couple of years. Found a new lease of performance this season. Has finally got that little Escort down into the 9s. And is starting to be competitive. Brian Peach in the meantime with the Lethal Blow car, the supercharger sticking out through the bonnet there. His crew just motioning him through the grip juice. That sticks the tyres to the track, gives him that perfect launch, unleashes nearly 1,000 horsepower to the start line as he leaves. Both our cars edging forward into stage. Tim Hines, the last into stage there, and we can see that he's edging forward, waiting for the green light. Qualifying for Pro Modified tomorrow. And a good run there for Brian Peach. Charging on well towards the top end. That looks like a good 9-second run for him. Dave Warren out for another qualifying run. Qualifying very, very important indeed. Need to get that good qualifying time for the crucial part of the elimination ladder on the Sunday. And we can see the door open there on the Sierra in the near lane, letting the smoke drift out from the tyres there from the burnout. Mick Cheeley being directed out into the grip juice by his crew. And there we can see just spinning the back tyres, coating them with that sticky compound. And thumbs up from the crew, moving forward into stage.
What does Dave Warren do this time? Forward into stage.
Mick Cheeley has just dipped into the 8s with that car. A good hard competitor every run. You see that the runs quite often from him, they're very wild, out of shape. Let's see what he can do this time. And problems there for him. And qualifying run, so no problems, but he's going to have to do some work. But Dave Warren in the meantime, stalling on to another strong run from him. Tim Cook, Mr. America, 56 Chevy, the ultimate shoebox in Pro Modified. Down into the 7s at the August Bank Holiday meeting. Can he repeat those performances here? The track certainly says he can. Tim Hines in the other lane, in the Escort, well, a little bit the underdog in this qualifying race.
And in the left-hand lane, Tim Hines.
And Tim Hines there, already his burnout procedure completed. Just moving back to get that grip juice again. Tim Cook waiting patiently there in the background. There we see the horsepower unleashed. Big tyres spinning as he comes out of it. A lot of plans for Tim Cook next year. Looking to build yet another car. Looking maybe to get into the 6s. That'll be interesting to see. A 6-second door slammer.
Both cars moving straight to the last qualifying session for our Pro Modified today.
So both moving forward into stage. Tim Hines really taking his time there. There goes the heads-up launch for Tim Cook. And look at that 56 Chevy fly. You can see the distortion there at the front end as the wind just hits that front of the car. Good run for him. Graham Barswell is a man that's been in the wars, as we can see. A lot of races tape, a lot of temporary repairs. Had some problems earlier on. And took a swipe at the guardrail. I think too serious. And he's back out here to put another qualifying run. Well, Dave Mingay, in the meantime, is a man that, as we can see, a lot of smoke in the car. A man that was in the sevens as well, so 3 of our Pro Modified cars in the sevens now. Good to see that. Of course, the other man is Jeff Houser. We'll see him later. Dave Mingay, his adage is drive it like you hate it. I think he certainly lives up to that one. Graham Bars with the late model Ford in the pit lane. Still getting used to the car. Dave Mingay's been campaigning for many years in different classes, in Modified, Super Street, and now running in our Pro Modified. And another good run from him there, down into the 8s. Well, we saw one Rover earlier on. That was Brian Peaches. This is Brian Peaches' old car. This is Trevor Hurst and Cole Taylor out again with the Starlight car. Trevor Hurst yet again flying the flag for Austin Rover with the Rover-powered entry. Cole Taylor with the Starlight Camaro, B&H Autocraft sponsored. A good launch there for Trevor Hurst. Colin Taylor fighting back towards the top end. Don't forget this is only qualifying, but a good run from both those cars. They repeat that tomorrow. It's going to be a very close call. Let's see this one again. You see the slight hole shot there for Trevor Hurst as he leaves the start line. Pure horsepower from Cole Taylor's car takes him very, very close at the top end. And we can see just at the finishing line there, just pipping him. That was a good run. Dave Pollen with the pollen count. Road legal. Unbelievable. We've said this one before, but I certainly wouldn't want to take that one shopping. Phil Englefield, a very characteristic thing. We've seen this several times already on the film, that they're going to be clearing the smoke away. Obviously, you can't go up the quarter mile with smoke in the car. Needs full visibility. Well, problems there for Dave Pollen as he left the start line, hit that throttle. A lot of nitrous, a lot of fuel in the car. And we could see that there was definitely a problem there. And let's see, there we go. As he leaves the start line, floors the throttle. Too much fuel, too much nitrous. A lot of flame and smoke in the engine compartment. Some work to be done for the next round. Moving on to competition car. And this is Ivor Roffey with the Alien. And a new car this year, but the driver we've seen for many years, Ray Barrow, used to be one half of the Flying Berserko team. And Archie McDermott is going to be campaigning the old car, but Ray Barrow in the neat little Vega. He had a win at the August Bank Holiday, so a good start for him, but Ivor Roffey it is that takes the win light in this qualifying session. Well, as we see, one of our foreign competitors, we've got competitors from all over Europe. This is Roland Tice with the Challenger. A fine, smoky line lock burnout from him. And he's going to be running in one of our street classes this weekend. As always, the Swedish and Scandinavian performances, they really are something to behold. Crew just putting down the traction compound in front of the tyres. Roland there just casting his eye around. First time we've seen him over in this country, so he's having a look round, seeing how things are done. Jerry Engstrom, in the meantime, one of our Nordic Pro Stock riders. We see a small hole shot there for Roland Tice, but already Jerry Engstrom long gone. That car, when it gets sorted out, we're going to see that one down in the sevens. Fine run from him. Well, a man that I certainly wouldn't pick a fight with, your local karate instructor, Ivan Birch, with the Snapdragon Altered. Sponsored by the Eastbourne Health Authority. Break the smoking habit, as we can see on the side of the car. And small block Chevy. Yeah, sitting out proudly in front of the driver. Ivan, by his own admission, I think would have to say he's one of the good time crew. Parties hard, drives hard. Always does very well indeed. Mark Riches from Wymondham in Norfolk. in the 5 Alive altered 302 small block Chevy. Chevy engines very, very popular indeed in competition. And Mark Richards has done very well for himself this year. Been just outside the 10s, a very difficult bracket for him to break into, but some new parts, some new driving techniques has seen him net a best time, 10.8 seconds earlier on. Ivan Birch, in the meantime, a solid 10-second performer, and he's run a best of 10.5. And a good run from both those cars. That'll see them well into eliminations tomorrow. Steve Warner from very near the racetrack, comes from Irchester. It's up the road, so not a great journey for him, not like some of our foreign competitors. Sponsored by Dymo, really has put a lot of work into that car. Crew chief, they're just telling him to wait, let the engine warm up, giving the thumbs up, motions him towards the start line. And Roy Cockrell, the man that really has had some flying performances down into the 8s earlier on this year. Be interesting to see what he can do this weekend. Building the RPM as they come into stage. Slight hole shot there for Steve Warner, but Roy Cockrell, you can see the difference in performance there already. Charges through the quarter mile, that's another good run for him. For Dave Ellis this weekend doing the driving chores, they share the driving between himself and Paul Pickett in the Exile Dragster 1200cc Kawasaki engine. In that diminutive little dragster. An unbelievable performance, has run down as low as 8.9 seconds. Mick Lido, in the meantime, with the HD World Time Machine, sponsored by Europaint. Rover V8 power. He's well known for his start line antics, often explodes the air cleaner or the air bug catcher off the top of the engine as he leaves the start line. Again, this is a problem with nitrous. Listen to the RPM there on Dave Ellis's XR Dragster as he brings the car up into stage, and he really does charge past at the top end. Difficult to believe only 1200cc motivates that little dragster. Here we get a chance to see it again. You can see a little problem for Dave Ellis as he leaves the start line, little bobble, doesn't really get the traction just right, doesn't get the RPM, very crucial on a low horsepower car. But once it gets going, really does charge on, and Mick Lido can only sit there and watch and be very thankful that that wasn't an elimination and just qualifying. Barry Giles and Hartley racing. A state-of-the-art car, what more can one say? Really does look very, very nice indeed. Paul Fogger-Smith, a lad from down the West Country, in the Bosscat Altered. The 3.8 Jag power, runs on methanol. An engine that was very popular many years ago, but seems to be dying out in favour of the Chevy engine now. Here we get a good look of Paul. Picture of concentration as he moves forward towards the start line. Those small practice launches there just to make sure the engine is running cleanly, the tyres, just that nice bit of grip. And in the meantime, Barry Giles patiently waits in the other lane for Paul to come to stage. See, edging carefully forward, setting the front wheels right in the timing beams. Look at the Christmas tree, we can see both of the cars into stage. There go the green lights. And Barry Giles, far superior horsepower, on his way to another 8-second run. But seems to slow down. The engine seemed to die just a little bit there towards the top end. Maybe some problems from him, we'll have to see. Gary Hart with a heart attack car. A scrap dealer from the London area. Very reminiscent of a German lager written on the side of the car. And another one of our foreign competitors, Nikolai Lorienko, with the Hanson Racing Sierra. He'll be running a competition car this weekend and not in a Pro Stock Eliminator. Different rules, different weight breaks, things like this. That means that Nicky A can't compete in Pro Stock, has to go into competition. He's going to be a fearsome competitor nonetheless. You can see the door open again there, getting that smoke out from the burnout. No such problem, of course, for the Altereds and the Dragsters. And there we get a fine shot of the grip juice. Spread round the tyres. Gary Hart moves forward into stage. Waiting for Nicky Lorienko to move forward. Building the RPM. Good launch there for Gary Hart, but Nicky Lorienko charging hard. I said that Gary Hart was a scrap dealer. It looks like he may have relegated that engine to scrap as well. Nicky Lorienko, a good run from him, pulls the chute at the end of the run. And we get a chance to see that smoke and that problem for Gary Hart there over in the far lane. Nicky Lorienko already alongside, charging hard, and a lot of smoke coming off of Gary Hart's engine there at mid-track. Carl Wilkinson, well, there's a man that has made the swap we've already spoken about. The Jag engine has been given the big Evo, and now we're running small block Chevy. And Lennart Olsen, another one of our Scandinavian competitors, in what must be a state-of-the-art dragster, very, very similar to what we'd see over on the American circuit, and performances very much in those lines as well. We're going to see probably 7-second runs from her this weekend. Carl Wilkinson, the future force car, well, he was stuck firmly into the 12-second zone until, of course, he swapped for a Chevy. Now he improves with every run. Really does look a very clean little altered Fiat Topolino body. Once again, we see him edging forward into stage. Then Olsen, well, I'm sure we're going to see her a fine, strong run from her. Well, we saw the car just hook up and leave front wheels in the air. Probably in the region of 500-600 horsepower there, at least from Lennart Olsen. A good run from her. That's going to put her in our top eliminator later on. Let's watch that launch again. You can see the whole chassis coil as she lets the throttle go and off up the quarter mile. Good run from her. Dave Tomaszuk, a local fruit and veg wholesaler from Wellingborough, with the wholesaler altered. Jag powered, running on methanol. Has got the facility to run nitrous. Don't know if he's doing that as yet. Peter Wallace with the Tantrum car. See him just pulling the visor down, moving forward. Small block Chevy again for this car, very popular engine. Point of interest, Dave Tomaszuk's car, of course, was once owned by Barry Giles, and Barry took that down into the 9.5, 9.6 zone. Dave's not quite repeated that yet, but this is his first season. He's very used to driving this car. Problems there over on the far lane. Overstage, you see the marshal move forward. Make sure Pete Wallace has no problems. There we go, up the quarter mile. Good run from both those cars. Said that only the top cars can look pretty. Brian Thomas in the immaculately turned out Paranoia. One of our leading exponents of the Jag engine has got that Jag running down into the 8 seconds. At 8.9 it has run. It's running back into the low 9s now. Fine looking car. As is this one, Tony Betts with the Robopop. So Tony Betts doing the first burnout and just trying a couple of practice launches, making sure that the tyres are adhering. Here we see just almost like the pro stock cars, flipping the throttle, moving it forward into stage. And Brian Thomas sitting there waiting. Another fine launch from him. A little bit of fight for traction as he left the start line, but you saw the front wheels hopping and skipping. So a good run for him. Chris Johnson in the Hampshire ARG. That isn't my pronunciation, that's him. Comes from Southampton in Hampshire. And himself and Nick Gay really have put on a beautiful show with this car. And over in the far lane, we have Dave Beanson with a very stretched, very radical Fiat Topolino, running a 400 cubic inch Ford engine. Never quite seems to realise the potential. But, I think Dave one day is going to sneak up and surprise a lot of us. So Chris Johnson moving forward with the Treston sponsored Hampshire Hog. And a good clean run from him, no problems, goes through the top end, back to the pits, a few modifications out for another qualifying run later. And with Gary Jonah from Gillingham in Dorset, John Powis, Henry's Revenge, DCA 17. We've spoken many times already on this film about the Chevrolet power plant, but here's a man that likes to be slightly different and very successful. Runs a Ford engine, 351 cubic inch Cleveland. Really has made that engine work very well indeed. Jim Seaward, in the meantime, with the Rover powered Slingshot. Not running nitrous this weekend, just running straight pump petrol. And Henry's Revenge at the end of a long season, looking for new things, new plans next year. And the car not running down into the nines like we've seen it before, not performing quite as hard as it does, but still showing Jim C with a clean pair of heels as he goes towards the top end. Good run for him there, 10.2 seconds. Well, 2 or 3 times a year we see our Rover V8 Challenge come to Santa Pod, and this is one of those times. Steve Law in the Ford Escort, Brian Binnington in the Ford Pop. Any body style will do. The only thing you have to have is a Rover V8 under the hood. There seems to be some problems there for Brian Binnington. His crew not happy. Doesn't seem to really be lighting the slicks very well on that first burnout. Having a second go, that looked better. And Steve Law with the Escort, moving forward into stage. Well, problems for both those cars away from the line. They don't sound at all clean to me. Some work to be done in the pits there to tighten their act up. Let's watch that one again. Both the cars seem to have problems getting away from the line. The tyres just gripping too hard, pulling the engine RPM down, and killing what could have been a good run for both those cars.
6.4 at 106 miles an hour.
So Kevin Jenkins with the Ford Pop there. Steve Dunn with the Tokyo Toy. The Toyota Celica with the small block in there. Has had a phenomenal amount of success over the last few years. And qualifying for the Sunday's eliminations. Steve Dobb will be running in our street class, and Kev Jenkins will be running in Super Street with the Bob Nixon prepared Ford Pop. Good race from both of those cars there. I'm quite pleased with that one. A little bit of smoke there from Kev Jenkins towards the top end. Let's watch the run again. I think we can see the expertise of Steve Dunn there paying off, and really did pull a fine hole shot out over Kev Jenkins. But the horsepower from Kev seemed to pay well at the top end. Andy Bell with the Star Parcel sponsored Barracuda, moving violations. So he has no moving violations as he goes up the quarter mile this time. New driver this year, Tim Adam, also a new driver. Very unlikely looking super gas car, the Ford Anglia. He really has run very well indeed, and this weekend he's had a lot of problems. In Supergas, the index is 9.9 seconds. You mustn't run any quicker than that, or else you're out of eliminations. He has trouble running slow enough to get in the class. And he really, really has been the class of Supergas this year. Al O'Connor it is that's taken the championship, though, with consistency, but Tim Adam is going to be chasing him hard next year. And we can see problems for Andy Bell, but Tim Adam, will he make it this time? And he does. He just creeps in 9.92 seconds. That sees him in the field for Supergas. More Rover V8 qualifying. Jez Atkinson in the Ford Anglia. A totally different approach from Tim Adams' car. And Jim Bishop, well, we have to say that kit cars, they're not new. This one dates all the way back from the 50s to Rochdale, based on the E93A sit-up-and-beg Ford Pop chassis. A new lease of life with the Rover power under the hood. And we haven't seen a Rochdale running at Santa Pod for some 15 years. It does look good to see it back again. Good hole shot there for Jez Atkinson. Problems for James Bishop. Well, that looks like a good qualifying run for the Rover V8 Bracket 2. Well, this is Ray Taylor with the Mazda 323. And a wild burnout there. It can only be one man, and it is John Wood in the heavy-breathing A40. 3-litre V6, Ford power under the hood. Jumping John Wood. And as normal, there we go, that little launch up to the line. We're going to see that again when he leaves the start line. I'm sure he must be in the Dave Mingay school of racing. Drive it like you hate it, and there we go. As he leaves the start line, wheels in the air. Ray Watkins in the Mazda can only sit and watch. Well, we certainly do see some different body styles, and an A40, that must be the strangest. And there we go, let's watch that start again. As the lights go green, the front wheels claw into the air there. Fine launch for John Wood. Well, a rather unusual looking MG here. That's Phil Herrick with the Rover V8 powered MG. And Kev Palmer with the Bedrock Bandit Mark III Zephyr. Again, Rover V8 powered. A very, very big field indeed turned out before the World Finals. In our Rover V8 Challenge. And qualifying went on all day on the Saturday, trying to whittle the field down to its final 16. Phil Herrick, of course, we've seen for many years with the Muscle Sprout series of competition cars, and he certainly has turned out a radical-looking MG. And it looks like he's got problems, teething problems, obviously, with the new car. And the Bedrock Bandit sees him off at the top end. And back to the pits. There's some tune-up work to be done there. Well, that's Ray Brown with the big Roadrunner, and Brett Featherstone is in fact over in the other lane with the Mark I Consul. Well, this car we've seen for many years has been struggling to get into the 11. Not exactly the lightest of car, must weigh over 3,000 pounds, but perseverance from Bob Brown has finally seen him down into the 11s. He's run a best of 11.8. And Brett Featherstone, problems there away from the start line for him. Ray Brown looking as though he's going to be on the way to another 11-second run for him. In the meantime, Brett Featherstone can only sit and watch and limp up the quarter mile.
Sportsman, Street, Super Street and Pro Stock Fight.
Well, Well, they say drag racing is bad for the health. I'm sure this paint scheme is bad for the health. It's the brightest car I think I've ever seen. Gordon Appleton Pontiac, the main ingredient, super gasser. Fine strong burnout from him. And Brian Pateman, he's been the terror of many door slammer meetings, and he's running the quartermaster Pontiac 455 cubic inch. He really has had his fair share of success at various door slammer meetings over the last few years. Looking to try his luck at Supergas this weekend. Car is well capable of getting down to that 9.9 second index. See the crew just motioning him forward into the grip juice. Spins the tyres, coats them with that glue-like substance. So both our cars moving forward, qualifying for tomorrow's eliminations. Good launch there for Gordon Appleton. Brian Pateman, though, the door slammer races of many years' experience, trying hard to catch him, but Gordon Appleton really on a flyer there, and he qualifies well. That puts him in the number 2 spot in Supergas. Oh, more Supergas qualifying. This is Mark Richards in the Dodge. Crew just checking something under the front end there. And this is Phil Manzi with the large production car. I don't see very many production cars now running at many of our meetings. It's normally street and super street, but Phil Manzi is the man. He decides he wants to run in production, watching his crew directing forward into the grip juice. So we can see him off up the quarter mile, looking to qualify, and obviously problems in the other lane. Phil Manzi on a bye run.
If you've noticed him, give him a wide berth, he's bobbling round on his...
Your Morris Minor never looked quite like this, I'm sure. Roger Hatherish in the Hot Lemon, Rover V8 powered. That is a fine looking car. And he's had a fair amount of success this year in Super Street. Certainly is a different approach. And Clive Mumby in the Nightmare Camaro. And you can see the intensity in his face there as he does that burnout. His crew there again, putting down that grip juice. You'll see that in virtually every class now. Trying to get that traction. That is the key to success.
Earlier on today, put him in the number 5 spot behind Greg Turner and Bell. White. Needs to improve. Let's see, Greg Turner, 4.
Oh, good launch there for Clive Mumby. He's running his Super Street this weekend. The index for that, as we know, is 10.9 seconds. Can't run any quicker. He's looking to run as quick as he can, and he runs 11.32. He'll be pleased with that one. Well, another one of our stranger body styles, the Mark 1 Cortina of Chris Wicks, sponsored by A to Z American Car Spares, 351 cubic inch Ford engine, and he's running against Pete Bordrib with the Supernova. We can see the rubber coating the tyres, all the back of the car. And he's done that burnout. Chris Wicks not happy with the position he's in on the track. Reverses back, tries to pick a new slot, a new patch of rubber. And we see him edging forward. Moving forward slowly into stage. Building the RPM on the engine. And Chris Wicks, that's a fine launch from him. I think he's going to be pleased with that run. Good and strong and clean all the way through. And as we can see, the sunshine roof open at the top end, so obviously he's pleased and enjoying his day's drive. Pete Mitchell in the GS Buick. A fine share of success as well this year, along with Bob Brown. They really have been battling for honours in that street bracket. And Marino Molinari in the pit side lane. So Pete Mitchell will be looking to run somewhere in the 11-9, 12-0 bracket, qualifying for the top street bracket tomorrow. Good launch from both those cars, but we can see Pete Mitchell already long gone. Marino Molinari not quite got the horsepower of the Buick. Paul Watson with the Grumpy's Toy 302 cubic inch small block Ford, and a very unusual car over there in the spectator lane, the Mickey Mouse car of Kevin Creed. Well, it's half a Volvo P1800 and it's half a Vauxhall Forenza and everything else, but it certainly has gone together very well. And Kevin gone up a class this weekend, normally runs in street, he's moved up into Super Street. Be interesting to see how he fares. Paul Watson with Grumpy's Toys, a regular 13-second runner. And consistency very much the name of the game in our street division. Kevin Creed from Lincolnshire moving forward. And we should see the difference in horsepower as these two cars leave the line. Paul Watson leaving well, but Kevin Creed already pulling out an advantage over him. The Super Street car, just that little bit quicker. It's the next rung up the ladder from street, so to speak, and we see Kevin Creed charging through the top end. A very good run indeed for him there. John Arkless in the Ginetta over on the far lane, and Ginger Brown with the Today sponsor Toledo. He works for the Today newspaper as a printer, and they've given him some money, put some stickers on the car, and he's enjoying a race in the Rover V8 Challenge. Day two dawned brighter, better, warmer. It was an absolutely superb day. A record-setting crowd at Santa Pod. We're ready for some fine action. The track was in superb condition. The race crews had worked hard into the night, preparing their machines for the final day's onslaught. And after the record-setting qualifying the day before, some great semi-finals, quarter-finals and finals were in prospect. Our Super Gas quarter-final, and it's Gordon Appleton showing Mark Richards the way home. And Gordon Appleton there running through just on the index, I'm sure. That looked like a good run from him. I think the caption's slightly wrong there. 9.99 seconds in his time on that run. Brian Thomas out there in the quarter-final. And he's slated to appear against Steve Warner with the Blue Blazer dragster. There indeed is Steve and his crew. One final check over the engine, making sure everything ready. This isn't like qualifying, there are no second chances. If you lose, you go home. Steve Warner edges forward. Very tense moment this. Building the RPM. And there goes the handicap start in favour of Steve Warner, and he's charging up the quarter mile. Brian Thomas doing all he can to catch him towards the top end. It's going to be very close indeed. Steve Warner just hangs on, and he takes a fine, well-deserved win there. 9.83 seconds, 136 miles an hour for him. That'll see him into the semi-finals. Jeff Martin with the Team Oxford Builder. Andy Gibson there walking forward, his crew chief. And that Reliant kitten, that hides another straight six Jag engine. And Dave Tomaszuk with the wholesaler car We've already seen him yesterday qualifying well. Jeff Martin been driving for quite a number of years with that Reliant Robin body car. Neither car wanting to stage first, edging forward, playing the waiting game. See Jeff just edges forward, holding on the brake. And a fine launch from him, just those front wheels just skipping in the air. Dave Tomaszuk right alongside him at mid-track. And Jeff Martin just eking out the win there. And good, that's the best ever there for Jeff Martin, 9.77. That'll see him through into the semi-finals. Well, a little note of historical interest there. Drag racing fans everywhere will have surely heard of Dennis Priddle. Well, that was Dennis Priddle's early car. Used to be called the Tudor Rose. Richard Lyon now calls it the Old Timer, and a classic slingshot dragster there. And Bob Batten over in the pit side lane. Well, he's a man that really has turned up the wick this weekend, and one of our few competition cars into the eights. It'll be interesting to see what he does in our quarter-final competition here. Richard Lyon, his crew, just checking over the car. Richard casting an eye over to Bob Batten, seeing if there's any problems. Really is the classic dragster. Well, Bob Batten has had a whole series of the Black Mass car. And this is his latest version, the Fiat Topolino, and he really is charging with this one. Let's see what he can do in our quarter-final here. And there we go, the handicap start in the favour of Richard Lyons. Bob Batten has got all the work to do, has got to charge hard, overtake him, and he's working very, very hard indeed. Pulls out about a car length's lead. A fine race from both those drivers. Richard Lyons just bit there. Bob Batten takes the win, and he's in the eights, 8:59, 142 miles an hour for him. We move on now with Super Street and the Bob Nixon prepared car. And that's Phil Herrick. Well, we saw him have problems earlier on there. Has he managed to get those fixed? Is the car back on song? Be interesting to see. Still a new car, a lot of new car bugs still in there, giving him problems maybe. And he's not going to be getting any quarter at all by that full pop. The call-up lights flashing on the top of the tree. They're beckoning both drivers forward. There go the green lights, and away they go. Looks like Phil Herrick still with problems. And that little four pop smoking badly there towards mid-track, but still seems to be running strong. Goes through, takes the win. Good run there for Kev Jenkins. Now this is our Rover V8 Challenge. And a man that I'm sure they must model themselves on, Steve Green, not running in the class this weekend. We see that little Rochdale again. Really does look very strange, almost out of a time warp. A car that shouldn't, 20 years ago, would have looked at home on the drag strip, but still performing very well indeed. So the Ford Escort in the pit lane, edges forward, he's into stage, just waiting for the Rochdale to move forward. And problems again on the launch there for the Escort, but got away with it this time. The Rochdale starting to recover and chase back, but I think the Escort's going to take this one. And yep, he goes through to the next round, to the semi-finals of our Rover V8 Challenge. Good run there for Ian. 12.44, 110 miles an hour. Martin Cowell with the midget now, another one of our Rover V8 Challenge. And, well, a rather strange-looking Vauxhall Forenza. We don't see these cars very often at Santa Pod, but they always put on a good show. Always a good class field. And one must say that Martin Cowell must be the hot favourite in this round. Been racing for many, many years in different classes. We see them both edging forward. Bit of traction problem there for the Forenza as he left the start line and seems to have broken something, really not going very well at all. And Martin Cowell charging through, taking advantage of that, and he's going to go through into the semi-final. 12.46, 110 miles an hour. Good run there for Martin. We move on with Pro Modified. And Trevor Hurst in the B&H Autocraft Rover. You see the smoke drifting across the start line, a very hard burnout from all these cars. All of them capable of getting down into the low eights. The Rover Sterling moving forward, and he's running against the man, Jeff Hauser, in the Ford Sierra. Hauser race cars prepared, and look at that launch there from Jeff Hauser, long gone. Trevor Hurst, just history. Problems away from the start line from him anyway, but an absolutely storming run there for Jeff Hauser. Has run in the sevens. Let's see what he can run this time to take him through into the semis. 8.60, 153 miles an hour. With Dave Mingay, we've already said he drives it like he hates it. He certainly seems to do that on the burnouts as well. And Cole Taylor must be wondering what on earth he's got to do to get past Dave Mingay for that semi-final berth. The door's just been shut on the Hellraiser Monza. Cole Taylor, a real big buck operation. 500 cubic inch Riallo engine under the hood. But Dave Mingay, just pure driving ability there. A fine hole shot over Cole Taylor. Cole Taylor working hard towards the top end. It was never going to be any other winner except Dave Mingay on that run. And Dave Mingay into the 7.92, 171 miles an hour. Our next pairing in our quarterfinals, Graham Bars with the Ford. We've already said, been in the wars this weekend. A few temporary repairs have been made, and he's running against Brian Peach with the Lethal Blow Rover. Well, if we're playing the favourites game, one has to say that Graham Bars must rate a slight edge over Brian Peach. Brian, with that huge supercharger sitting in front of him. Always a fierce competitor. And a fine launch there for Graham Bars. Got a little bit loose, about 30 or 40 yards out. Went for the fence again a little bit, but collects it all back together and takes a fine win. And that'll see him in the semi-finals. And he's going to have to perform a little bit better than that because Dave Mingay, we've just seen, ran a 7.9. Graham Bars not far behind now, 8.02, 174 miles an hour. Moving on to competition. I know it looks like a door slammer, but as we've already said, Nikkei Lorienko running in competition this weekend, and his quarterfinal opposition here is Bob Gliddo with the Time Machine Rover powered, sponsored by Gates and Euro Paints. Nikkei, one of our Scandinavian competitors in the AFX Ford Sierra. See the crew, almost like our professional cars there, the crew's just motioning them back into the rubber marks they've just left. Bob Gliddo just sitting, waiting, the crew just checking over, making sure the temperature on the engine is okay. So both our cars edging forward, neither wanting to stage first. The old drag racing law, he who stages last wins. Very much in their minds here. Lorienko, there you go, you just see the car dip as he goes into stage. There goes the handicap in the favour of Bob Glido. Nikkei Lorienko got to do all the work, charging hard after him, neck and neck at mid-track, and Nikkei Lorienko that goes ahead and takes the win. 8.16, 155 miles an hour. That was one of his best runs of the weekend so far. Could he improve in the next round? Well, Gary Hart, we thought had reduced the car to scrap, but obviously been working long into the night before, repaired all the damage from the previous day, and back out here in Comp Eliminator quarter-final against another one of our foreign competitors over on the far lane. And that's Gert Andersen there. PPM sponsored car. Crew gives him the thumbs up, quite happy with the way the burnout was done. As always, the Scandinavian machinery absolutely immaculately turned out. So we'll see a handicap start in the favour of Gary Hart. And it's going to be Gert Andersen is going to be doing all the chasing, trying to catch up, take that win light. Building the RPM. There goes the handicap favour. And Gert Andersen charging hard towards the top end. I don't know if he's going to catch him. A lot of smoke there at the top end. Well, it's neck and neck. We'll have to watch that one. That was very, very close. But Gary Hart destroyed that engine at the top end, and Gert Andersen takes the win. 8.16, 166 miles an hour. Very close run indeed. Roy Cockrell up in the dragster. And he ran well yesterday. And Ivor Roffey, a man that's really found a new lease of life. Always interesting to see what professions some of our drag racers have been. And Ivor Roffey used to be a bank manager. The Alien car, a very, very abbreviated version of a Fiat Topolino body. And our car's edging forward into stage. The track holding up well during the day. The sun, as it gets warmer, more and more traction becoming evident. And the performances of these cars really have been nothing short of amazing this weekend. Well, you can hear Roy Cockrell already in stage there, building the RPM. Slight handicap start in the favour of Ivor Roffey, but problems for him, and Roy Cockrell storms past him before mid-track and takes a fine win there. Well, Roy Cockrell, 8.08, 144 miles an hour. Just how long will it be before we see another competition car in the sevens? Well, Lena Olsen, we saw yesterday, that fine heads-up launch from her. What can she do in competition? She's in Super Comp this weekend, and she really has got some tough opposition. And a real David and Goliath battle here. Dave Ellis with the XR Dragster. We saw that launch yesterday, but he had problems then. So much traction here available at Santa Pod this weekend that really is almost too much for that little dragster to overcome. And Lena Olsen is not going to hang around and wait for him. So Dave Ellis knows that that launch is very, very crucial indeed. Just listen to the RPM on that engine. It's the only way you can get that car to launch well away from the line. And you see problems there, a fine example. Traction, too much for him there. Lennart Olsen, no problems whatsoever and long gone. I'm sure if Dave Ellis could have got away from the start line a little bit better, that would have been a different race entirely. But Lennart Olsen, a storming run for her, 7.79, 165 miles an hour. Well, one of the classic muscle cars from the 60s, the Flying Pony. This is the American Heartbeat. Small block Ford, 289 cubic inch. And he's running against Paul Watson with the Grumpy's Toy, so a pair of Ford engines. Paul Watson's called the car very much after the drag racing legend in the States, Bill Grumpy Jenkins, one of his heroes. So our first quarter-final of Street. And Steve Dodge really working hard there with the Mustang. You can see him nearly wrench the gear lever out of the transmission tunnel there as he changed gear, but he's going to have to work hard, and Steve Dodge just takes the win. .27, 86 miles an hour. That's good enough to see him in the semi-finals. Well, John Arkless with that GTM, the mini-powered kit car. And he's running against Phil Manzi. Another David and Goliath battle here. The kit car, of course, weighing no more than probably 1,600 pounds at most. Phil Manzi with that big American car really going to have to work hard to try and overcome the handicap. And there we can see the handicap in his favour. But John Arkless, well, he's going to come charging back at him towards the top end, I'm sure. And Phil Manzi well out in front there. And we could actually see him put the brake lights on so he didn't break out at the top end. If you go quicker than your dialed in time, you lose. Phil Manzi quite safe there, 15.76, 66 miles an hour. Marino Molinari with the Dodge again. Well, there you get a fine shot of that grip juice being put down in front of the tyres and spinning the tyres in that, making sure it sticks to the tarmac as he leaves the start line.
This is his second semi-final in our first 90 bracket. Marino Molinari in the left-hand lane.
So Marino Molinari edging forward. And Steve Dunn over in the far lane was Steve Dunn, as we've already said, a man that has done many, many years of racing. And we can see here at the top end, it's anybody's race. Well, that's a difficult one to call. I think that Steve Dunn may have just taken that one at the top end, but Marino Molinari really charging hard. Steve Dunn, very, very close indeed, just ekes out across that finish line and takes the win. What a fine run from him. 12.71, 107 miles an hour. Super Street Eliminator, and we have the Up in Smoke Pontiac. That's Pete White from Northampton, and the semi-final this one is. And over in the far lane, that's Greg Chirella with the Opel Manta.
Well, a message on the back of Pete White's car there, the Up in Smoke Pontiac, car for sale.
So both these drivers looking for a place in the final of Super Street. This is where the tension is starting to really build. And a good launch there for Pete White. Greg Chirella chasing hard towards the top end. But Pete White pulling out a sizable lead. Greg Chirella fighting back at him though, and it's very, very close. Well, let's watch that one again. It's anybody's race. Pete White easing off the throttle towards the top end. Greg Chirella it is that comes charging past. Pete White easing off just that little bit too soon. Mind you, a lot of smoke there from Greg Chirella right as he goes through the finish line. 11.92, 112 miles an hour. A good race. That puts him into the final. Who will be his opposition? We're very shortly going to find out now with Andy Bell, the moving violations Barracuda. See the crew there trying to hold the car while he does that line lock burnout. Keeping the tyres in the water. Making sure that those tyres are as hot as he can possibly get them. And he's against Clive Mumby in the Nightmare car. So the winner of this race is going to go up against Greg Chirella. That'll be for the money run. Well, the traction compound going down there, very much just like a glue, almost just sticks those tyres to the track. Clive Mumby moves forward, looking over towards his opposition. The next 11 seconds will determine which two of these gentlemen will meet Greg Chirella in the final. You can hear the revs building on the engines. Clive Mumby moving forward. And playing the waiting game, neither wanting to stage first. Andy Bell really taking his time. And there's our start line marshal. Come on, let's get into stage, let's get this race underway. And problems there for Andy Bell, gets that red light, so Clive Mumby it is that takes the win. Let's just explain very quickly, a 20-second burn down. Once one car is in stage, the other guy has 20 seconds to get into stage. Andy Bell didn't make that 20 seconds, so Clive Mumby takes the win, 12.08, 113 miles an hour. So that sets up the final, which we'll see later between Greg Chirella and Clive Mumby. We move on with Bosscat, Paul Fogger-Smith, 3.8 carburetted Jag power plant, running on methanol. There you can see the engine wide open as he leaves the bleach box. So tyres good and hot. And a power plant that's starting to take off in a big way in this country to rival the Rovers and the Jags. The 2.5 litre Daimler, which was made very popular by Russ Carpenter over the last few years. Robin Reed has recently run his on nitro as well to some stunning performances. The engine in this car just running on alcohol, and not the performance that nitro can give, but still capable of running down into the 9-second bracket. A new driver with the car this weekend though, so still very much on a learning curve. Paul Fogger-Smith, I'm sure, is going to take every advantage away from the start line. Well, the dragster in the far lane, taking a long time to reverse back after that burnout. The crew just removing the pin there from the parachute, showing the driver that has been removed, ready to run. Both cars edge forward. We're going to see a handicap start here. And there was a slight lead there for the dragster, but Paul Fogger-Smith charging already after him. Seems that he may have missed a gear shift there. Definitely smoking heavily towards the top end. And it's the Daimler dragster that takes the win. And that was a good run for him. That's Dave Skinner, 12.93, 72 miles an hour. Seemed to be slowing down towards the top end, but good enough for a place in the final. Well, this diminutive little comported, now running the Rover V8 power plant, used to run a Lotus twin cam engine in there many years ago, and had a fair share of success for its previous owners. And this new one, new driver from North Weald, saw him come out at that racetrack earlier on this year, and he won that meeting, so a good debut for him. And in the first round he put out a much faster car. He's running against Dave Beanson in the snakebite car in the pit lane. So there we come, moving into stage. Going to see handicap in the favour of the little Topolino altered. Two contrasting styles of the same body. And Dave Beanson, a good hole shot there. And it looks like he's going to keep his nose in front all the way up. A good couple of 3 car lengths lead as he goes through the finish line. That puts him through into the next round. 12.43, 95 miles an hour for Dave Beanson in the snakebite car. And this is Dave Grabham now with the Blue Dragon. And seems to swap body shells like other people would probably swap other parts, but sometimes turns out with a Model T body on, other times with this stretched A35 body on. And does run very well in the car, has run right down in the 10s with the assistance of nitrous oxide. So comp bracket, this is the semi-final. Winner of this is going to run against Dave Beanson. So Dave Grabham moving forward into stage. This is the first semi-final, the second semi-final, should I say, of comp bracket 4. And problems there for Dave Grabham. You can see the flash of flame from the carburettor. Chris Johnson long gone in the Hampshire hog, goes through to take a clean win, but problems back at the start line for Dave Grabham. Chris Johnson goes through 10.59, 132 miles an hour. So he'll meet Dave Beanson in the final. Moving up a class now, Steve Warner with the Blue Blazer dragster. Seen him dip into the 9s earlier on this year, and he's racing against Jeff Martin with the Oxford Builder. Both crew chiefs motioning the cars back after their burnout. Steve Warner in 1988, of course, had that half share in the competition car championship. Not quite had the measure of success during the 89 season. Our first semi-final in Sportsman Eliminator underway. Both cars edging forward into stage. Good hole shot, good launch there for Jeff Martin. You can see the Reliant jumping away there. And Steve Warner's chasing it towards the top ends, but Jeff Martin it is that takes the win. And Jeff Martin, another good run in the 9s there, 9.91, 134 miles an hour. He goes through to the final. And where he will meet one of these two gentlemen. The first one we meet there, Bob Batten, with the Black Mass Fiat Topolino. Already run down in the 8s this weekend. Another wild burnout, very much his trademark. And his opposition, Ray Barrow. One of his very first meetings with this Vega. And he's had a fair measure of success, won the August Bank Holiday meeting in the semi-finals. Must be pleased with the way the car is going. Once again, grip juice going down in front of Bob Batten's tyres. Crew gives him the thumbs up. Good shot there, that very cramped driving position in that Fiat Topolino. Bob almost lays on his back, his knees either side of the steering wheel. Not the ideal driving position. But, one has to say, perhaps that's why Bob's made the car go so quick, so he can get out of it quicker at the other end and stretch his rather large frame. So here they come edging forward into stage. looking for that place in the final. A very prestigious meeting to win the World Finals, and Ray Barrow, a good hole shot there. And Bob Batten is going to have to do an almighty charging act. Look at this race, Bob Batten charging hard, right alongside him. It's anybody's in the eyes there. Very, very close indeed. And we see this in replay, and Ray Barrow is charging towards that top end all the time. Bob Batten is closing on and closing every minute of the way, and Bob Batten just sneaks past right in the eyes there. 8.61, 143 miles an hour. Well, we move on, Super Street. This is another one of our semi-finals. The Bob Nixon chassis car looks a little bit strange, but really does perform very, very well indeed. And he's running against, I believe that's Chris Pegg in the Escort. Chris for many years used to run in the production division. He's now moved up, running in street. Allows him more freedom to modify the engine, and he's certainly done some modifications there, because I don't think I've seen a Ford Escort go like that, and he was very close to that white line at mid-track. It'll be interesting to see the way the judges call that one. They say he's okay. Chris Pegg takes a win, 10.93, 126 miles an hour.
136 miles an hour.
Moving up another class now, Super Gas, Gordon Appleton in the Pontiac. We've seen him several times already this weekend, and another one of his characteristic strong storming burnouts there.
Unbelievable. Oh yeah, and comb the hair. Right then, on to serious stuff.
And there he is, the man himself, Al O'Connor. Recently back from that trip across in the USA, and had a fair measure of success. Back over to compete in Super Gas in this country. So there we see Gordon Appleton, grip juice going down. Must wonder what he has to do to put Al O'Connor out. He really is going to be trying 110% here. We see him moving forward into stage. There we go, he just edges forward, locks the car in there. You can see it just sit as he locks the torque converter, ready to run. Building the RPM. Good launch for him. He really is on a charge, that run. Now don't forget, he can only run 9.9 seconds. No quicker than that. Al O'Connor appears to have problems. A fine storming run there for Gordon Appleton, but he goes too quick and breaks out. So Al O'Connor, with all his problems, only runs 17.56, but goes through to the final. So, Gordon Appleton a little bit too keen there. Here we move on. Brian Pateman with the quartermaster. So an upset there in that first semi-final, but let's hope there's no upsets in this one. Brian Pateman, good shot of him there, sitting there watching the crew, putting down the grip juice. Very much the crew in charge until you come up into stage. So another possible upset here, because Brian Pateman, he can run down to about 9.9. Tim Adam this weekend has had problems keeping into the 9.9 bracket. A lot of the times he's run under 9.5, 9.6. So he can go too quick. This is going to be an interesting semi-final. Will we see a repeat of the first semi-final we saw earlier on? Let's wait and see. There they go, both cars away from the line. Tim Adam, a good hole shot. Brian Pateman charging back at him. It's neck and neck at mid-track. Tim Adam starting to pull out a little bit of a lead there as he goes through the finish line. We just have to wait and see the times and speeds as they come through. And Brian Pateman it is that takes the win, 9.88. He is too quick, but Tim Adam broke out by more. So Brian Pateman and Al O'Connor meet in the final. We move on to Pro Modified. A lot easier class of racing to understand this one, Whoever gets to the finishing line first, he wins. No breakouts, ultimate horsepower here. And Graham Bars, well, an up and down weekend for him. And he's got a monumental task in front of him now. Pro modified semi-final, and this is the Hellraiser car of Dave Mingay. And of course we saw him into the sevens earlier on, 7.92. Graham Bars has yet to run in the sevens, has run 8.02, very close, but Dave Mingay must rate a favourite's edge.
Dave Mingay in the Hellraiser Monza, over on the far lane. Forward, taking his time, taking forward each stage. Better hurry up,
Dave Mingay's taking a very long time to get in the stage there. And Graham Bars away up the quarter mile. Dave Mingay really on a charge there, coming back up towards him. Looked like a good run there. And Graham Bars did take that win, 8.70, 171 miles an hour. An upset win, knocks out Dave Mingay in the semi-finals. Tim Cook, Mr. America. That 56 Chevy really is the class act at the moment. Very hard to beat indeed. The only man that can really do that is Jeff Hauser, of course. Slight difference between these two cars, apart from obviously the body styles, is that Jeff Hauser, 500 cubic inch, no nitrous oxide, just straight pump gas, runs it very much like the Pro Modified and Pro Stock rules in the States, whereas Tim Cook, he uses nitrous oxide to give him that little bit of performance boost. So here we have two proven 7-second runners right next to each other in our second semi-final.
Okay, Jeff Hauser in the left-hand lane and Tim Cook in the right.
It was nice to see earlier on in the weekend that the Nordic Pro Stock crews were actually coming over to Jeff Hauser and congratulating him. They feel that Jeff's car is the nearest to the American rules which the Nordic boys run, and they were very pleased that he'd finally broken into that 7-second zone. So Tim Cook getting ready to do his second burnout.
On Friday.
And there we see Tim Cook just reaching up, venting the nitrous, that little steam, or what looks like a jet of steam is in fact nitrous, purging the system, making sure it gets a good cool charge of nitrous right up to the carburetors.
Definitely the favourite here in this race. Tim Cook, 7.75 earlier on.
Oh, an absolutely fabulous semi-final here in Prospect.
Well, but Jeff Hauser very, very quick on that start line.
Well, Jeff Hauser, you can see interstage building RPM. Both cars lift the front wheels as they go away. It's neck and neck up the quarter mile. Tim Cook got about a car length lead, charging away. Maybe problems with Jeff Hauser, but Tim Cook, an absolutely superb run for him, puts him in the final. 8.08, just outside the 7-second zone, 144.5 miles an hour. We move on with our competition cars, and this is Nikkei Lorienko and the Hansen Racing Sierra. You can see him, they're just shifting through the levers of the Lenko transmission in the car. All he has to do, each gear has its own separate gear lever. As he changes gear, just pulls that different lever to select that gear. Building the RPM, the practice launch across the start line there. And his opposition in this semi-final is the Giles and Hartley car. Barry Giles doing the driving chore, Phil Hartley filling in as the crew chief. Really is nice to see, we've said it before, but good to see these European bodies just being transplanted with American-style engines and things. Good to see that. Hopefully one day we'll see some, maybe Fords sponsoring their Sierras, who can say. But good to see that. Thumbs up to the crew. Okay, Lorienko looks very confident indeed coming into this semi-final. Barry Giles seems to be having problems there, seeing the lights on the Christmas tree, shielding his eyes, coming up into stage, the afternoon sun running straight down the track at him. There goes the whole shot in the favour of Barry Giles. And Nikkei Lorienko charging hard after him, but Barry Giles, foot buried deep to the floor, takes that win, moves him forward into the final. Good run for him, 8.59, 147.2 miles an hour. And this is our second semi-final. It's Gert Andersen in the PPM car, and he should be running against Roy Cockrell. So we've knocked out one of our foreign competitors in that semi-final. Can Gert Andersen keep the European hopes alive? Well, Gert Andersen motioning towards the crew there. Maybe a small problem. Roy Cockrell, well, he ran that 8-0 earlier on this weekend, looking for a 7. Motor sounds very strong indeed there. Crew just making a final adjustment. And Roy Cockrell moves forward, he's into stage, waiting for Gert Andersen. There goes the handicap in favour of Roy Cockrell. He really does take advantage of that. Got a car length already over Gert Andersen, but Gert Andersen charging back at him towards the top end. It's anybody's race as it goes through that finish line. Well, that's a difficult one to call. Let's watch it again in slow motion. Roy Cockrell with a car length lead, but Gert Andersen really charging hard. He is absolutely on a flyer there towards the top end. And that's neck and neck as they cross the finish line. And Roy Cockrell just hangs on to take the win. 8.55, 150 miles an hour. That sets up the final with Barry Giles. Well, exhibition classes here again this weekend, and the jet of Colin Fallows, a very welcome person at the fireworks meetings and the meetings at the beginning of the year, always gives everybody a nice warm as he goes up the track. And a man, the ultimate showman, but always puts on a fine show for everybody. And a completely different driving experience from any of our other cars. Of course, they drive through the wheels. This is just pure thrust. Spoken many times to Colin, and his major problem is that when he builds the RPM on the engine, even with all the four-wheel discs locked on the car, he just cannot keep that car in stage. So always suffers a little bit on the first bit of the run, but always charges through at the top end. Good run there for Colin. Now we move on to our Rover V8 Challenge. And this is the final between Paula Atkin in the 100E in the far lane, in the spectator lane, and Martin Cowell in the MG in the pit lane. So Paula Atkin has seen her way through a tough field of eliminations today, as has Martin Cowell. This is the one for the money. A whole shot there for Paula Atkin away from the start line. Already got a car length over Martin Cowell, but Martin charging back at her. It's neck and neck at mid-track. Martin Cowell starts to pull ahead at the top end, and Martin Cowell it is that takes a well-deserved win. And we can see there he's charging through that top end. Good run there from Martin. Takes the win, 11.56, 120.9 miles an hour. And Phil Manzi, and he's put down a few quicker cars than him today, really has read the handicaps well. And he's looking now to get into the winner's circle this weekend.
I've just been told off again. Paula Atkin. Sorry, Paula. Yes, we should say that. Sorry, Paula. She just came up actually, yeah.
And his opposition is Pete Broadrib in the Supernova. So we have the Street Supernova in the pit lane and the production car of Phil Manzi in the spectator lane. And all these roads to brackets, of course, we find that each one has got a run to a different index. We have the 1190, 1290 and 1390 bracket. And a good start there for Phil Manzi. He really did put a whole shot, but Pete Broadrib it is that ekes out in front of him, gets a little bit of a lead. I think he's going to hang on to that one towards the top end. And Pete Broadrib it is that takes the win. As we can see, the superior horsepower of the Nova takes Pete Broadrib through, and he wins the 1390 bracket with a 14.38 at 93 miles an hour. Bob Brown, already said this weekend, has run down into the 11s. He's running in the 1190 bracket. I'm sure he would dearly love to break out and go quicker, because if he did, that would be a best ever time for him. And an adversary that he's run against many times, Pete Mitchell, with the GS Buick in the pit lane. Our final of our 1190 bracket.
Losing finalist yesterday in our road to division. Pete Dodd just kicked him at the post.
So there we go, both our cars into stage. Good even start, nothing to choose between them at the moment. And this is a close final. There's still nothing there, neck and neck as they head towards mid-track. It's all about the finish line. And I think it was the Buick that just took that one very, very close indeed. Watching that on replay, Bob Brown really is on a move there, and it's Bob Brown that just sneaks past him. 11.95, 110 miles an hour. So the big yellow Dodge takes the win. Moving up another class again, this is Super Street, the final nightmare car of Clive Mumby in the spectator lane. And Greg Chiarello with the Opel. Very aptly named car, straight to the point. And, Greg has done quite well in some of our door slammer eliminations earlier on this year, trying his hand here at Super Street this weekend. Just remember those rules, no quicker than 10.9 or you'll foul yourself out of competition, and that is not a way to lose a final.
Close as they can to their 1090 index. Clive Mumby, I know, can run quicker than that.
Both cars edging forward into stage. Clive Mumby spectator lane, Greg Chiarello in the pit lane, and a good launch there for Clive Mumby. Really has taken advantage of that start away from the line. Greg Chiarello, it looks as though may have problems, and Clive Mumby 6-7 car lengths there as he goes through the finish line. All he has to do is make sure he doesn't break out, and a good run for him there. He hasn't gone quicker than 10.9, which he hasn't. He takes the win, 11.30, 119.7 miles an hour.
Miles an hour. Well done to him and the crew taking the win.
We step back a couple of brackets now, and this is our 1290 index, and this is Steve Dunn with the Tokyo toy. Steve Dodds it is that is over in the far lane, in the spectator lane, with the American Heartbeat Mustang. Steve Dunn, of course, yesterday in the Tokyo toy, came out winner in our roast, had a run-off against the Buick of Paul Mitchell, and took the win, so he's the champion for 1989. And Steve Dodds, he's having none of that, and he really wants to take the win away from Steve Dunn, but Steve Dunn not going to have anything to do with him whatsoever. Look at that, a couple of 3 car lengths lead as he goes through the finish line. Goes through and takes the win. Steve Dodd, runner-up this time. 12.83, 110 miles an hour for Steve Dunn.
Right then, the first of our finals for competition cars. And
there's this little Daimler-powered dragster again. Somewhat lucky, some may say, to get through so far. A lot of his opposition has broken or not performed up to par. But nonetheless, here he is sitting in the final. getting in more runs all the time, getting further up that learning curve, getting more used to the machine. I'm sure we're going to see that living to its full potential, getting down into the low 9s, high 8s within the next few meetings. His opposition, Dave Beanson, with the snakebite car. 400 cubic inch Ford motor. You see our start line crew keeping a very close eye on Dave Beanson's car. Maybe a problem there. Checking. It's okay. Dave Skinner, we have it in the spectator lane. Dave Beanson with a good hole shot there in the pit lane. And problems maybe for Dave Skinner. You can see it's starting to misfire there at mid-track slightly. And Dave Beanson's car takes the win, loses the hood scoop in the process, but takes the win in comp bracket 4. Well, there you go. There goes the hood scoop. Obviously a little bit of a backfire or misfire from the engine, but far enough in front that it didn't really matter then. You can see he was slowing there at the top end, 12.58 at only 96 miles an hour. Well, our first chance to see Steve Green, Mr. Rover, I think it's the only word we can use to describe that. If you've ever heard a Rover engine, you've never heard one like Steve Green's. Really does make that thing scream as it leaves the start line. And the wildest riding Mark 1 Cortina you have ever seen. So he's in the final here of our Rover V8. Chris Pegg over there in the far lane. And there goes Steve Green, bouncing and hopping all over the show, but already got a few car lengths over Chris Pegg. Chris Pegg charging well, but Steve Green in a different class there, takes the win. And Steve Green, well, we've seen him drop down into the 10s. What can he run this time? He runs in the 9s for Steve Green. Well done to him. 9.87, 137 miles an hour. Final now, Super Gas, and as we've already said, that Al O'Connor is slightly lucky to be in this final. Had a troubled run, but his opposition broke out, and he's against Brian Pateman. And Brian Pateman it is that's away. Problems there for Al O'Connor again on the start line. Brian Pateman can afford to take it easy. He's looked in his rear view mirror, knows that Al O'Connor's broken, just coasts through, takes the win. So Al O'Connor's season-long domination broken there, and Brian Pateman takes the Super Gas win with a run of 11.18 at 86 miles an hour. Mo Blackburn with a jigsaw car, another finalist. And he's also breaking the Chevrolet monopoly here, running a 351 Cleveland Ford engine. Chris Johnson in the pit lane with a Hampshire Hog altered. Mo Blackburn from Norwich. Last year, of course, campaigned that Ford Mustang, that very abbreviated Ford Mustang altered. He's gone in for the dragster and has had a fair measure of success, running his best ever times with this car this year. Yeah, just blipping the throttle there, clearing the engine, making sure it's running at 100%, and he's going to need to be very good to beat Chris Johnson in this final. And Chris Johnson already charging hard towards that top end. Mo Blackburn fighting back at him though. Very close run thing indeed there at the top end. Mo Blackburn, it looks as though, just sneaked past to take the win. Watch that again on replay. And Chris Johnson enjoyed a fair sizable lead there, but Mo Blackburn just sneaked past at the top end to take the win. 10.17, 136.4 miles an hour. Team Martin Gibson, Oxford Builder 2, Jeff Martin at the driving controls of this little Reliant.
Well, final
Very, very consistent competitor indeed. Always around the final, semi-final, runs very well indeed. Normally would rate a bit of an edge over his competition, but Bob Batten this weekend we have seen put in some tremendous 8-second passes. And once again, Bobby's going to have to give best to Jeff. Jeff Martin in the Oxford Builder will be leaving first. He'll have the handicap start. Bob Batten it is that's going to have to chase up the quarter mile, trying to make up nearly a second and a half handicap. There goes Jeff Martin, a little bit slow away from the line. Problems for him, I think, possibly transmission. Didn't seem to hook up like it normally does. And troubles too for Bob Batten, so Jeff Martin it is that takes the win, but troubles for both of those drivers there up the quarter mile. That's a great shame. That would have made a great race if both those cars had been on song. But Jeff Martin nonetheless takes the win with a very slow and off-form run for him, 13.15 at 107 miles an hour. There's this Swedish lady again, Lena Olsson. You know, already with a couple of runs down into the sevens. I really feel she's going to have to run something a bit special to win in the final, especially when she's running against the only competition car in Europe that runs in the 60s. Well, a lot of the pro cars do, we know that, but an ordinary competition car to run in the 60s, that's something special, and that's what she's got to run against now. In the pit lane, Robin Reed with the rear engine, supercharged and injected, nitro burning, 2.5 litre Daimler. Olsen looking the picture of composure there. University's back. Edges forward towards the line. Robin Reed, though, really does rate a favourite's edge. Crew just checking over the car. Robin Reed, of course, just one of the members of that very famous Reed Speed family. Steve Reed, of course, runs in Pro Comp. And a fine launch there for Robin Reed. Lena Olsson charging hard, but Robin long gone. Excellent run there for him. Takes the win in Top Comp Eliminator. .16, 188 miles an hour for Robin Reed. Well-deserved win for him. Finishes off the season for him well. Another one of our finalists. Two dragsters together. They've both put out Scandinavian opposition in the semi-final. Barry Giles with the Giles and Hartley dragster, all the way from Southampton in Hampshire. And Roy Cockrell. Well, Roy has been very, very close to the sevens indeed this weekend. Ran that 8-0 earlier on. So Barry Giles really is going to have his work cut out. Going to see a slight handicap in the favour of Barry as he leaves the start line. Going to have to make every bit of that count. Stay in front of Roy Cockrell though. So Barry's run 8.54. He's going to have to run something very close to that, and that was a superb launch from him. Really did make use of the handicap. Roy Cockrell charging back at him towards the top end, but Barry Giles it is that just hangs out and stays in front to take the win. Look at it again in replay. Roy Cockrell charging hard, but Barry Giles foot buried deep on the throttle pedal there. And just takes the win, 8.63, 148.3 miles an hour. A rather battle-scarred Ford of Graham Bars comes round to do battle in the Pro Modified final. And he's running against Tim Cook in the 56 Chevy. Tim and the crew just waiting patiently for Graham to finish his burnout. There again we can see that jet of nitrous purging the system as he comes to the start line. Seems to have a few problems there. Doesn't seem to be quite lined up. The crew just moving him slightly across on the track. You've obviously spotted where some of the big pro cars have been leaving a lot of rubber, wanting to hook up onto that on this final. And Graham Bars leaves too soon, leaves the red light on the tree, so the win goes to Tim Cook. Don't know if Graham Bars knows that because he's still charging hard, but Tim Cook it is that takes the win in our pro modified final. Well, you can see Graham Bars just leaves far too early, and as he goes past the Christmas tree, you can see the red light firmly displayed at the bottom. There it is. Tim Cook, the winner in Pro Modified. Just outside the sevens though, 8.24, 149.4 miles an hour. Well, that concludes our Sportsman coverage of the World Finals. And let me just remind you that, of course, the sister tape to this, with all our pro classes, Top Fuel, Funny Car, etc., is available for more racing action like we see now. Nitro burning action from Santa Pod at the 1989 World Finals. All it remains for me to do is to thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed our coverage of the 1989 World Finals. And from me, Steve Young, goodbye, and we look forward to seeing you in the 1990s.